All right, let's move on. And again, working on the curves and color balance layer in your layers panel. The next thing we're going to work on is adjusting the hue and saturation in a selection. So the ability to change the color and saturation on a specific spot in this image. So what we're going to do is these two yellow peppers over here in the far right, we're going to go ahead and change those peppers easily to orange. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And the next thing I want you to do is to grab your lasso tool and make sure you have your lasso tool. Once it's selected, I want you to have feather 2 pixels. So go ahead and just quickly go around your peppers. Of course, you can use any selection tool that you think is best to grab the peppers, but I like this one for practice. So I have my yellow peppers, pretty good selected, pretty well selected. There's some stuff I'm missing, but I will show you how to fix that in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is we want to subtract the green stems from the peppers. We don't want to change the color of the green stems. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to grab my magic wand tool. If I can remember where it is. There it is. It's hiding here. Magic wand tool. My tolerance is set to 50. My sample size is point sample, which is great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the option key on my keyboard, and when I hold the magic wand tool over the green portion of the pepper, it will subtract the green from my selection. So again, holding down the option key, and then I'm going to click on the green portion of the pepper. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to show you how to kind of make this like even clearer after we do this. All right, so I've got the yellow peppers selected. The green stems are not selected. And now again, we're going to go up to Image, Adjustment, Hue and Saturation. Image, Adjustment, Hue and Saturation. And we're going to change the hue. I'm going to go ahead and put in -15 in my hue. -15. And you'll see that my peppers have become orange. And I'm going to change my saturation a little bit. I'm going to make it less saturated because those peppers are a little too orange for me by doing -10 on the saturation. Again, you can hit the preview button on your hue and saturation panel, and you can see the changes that have been made. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to do a Command D on my keyboard, which is deselect. So I want to unselect the selection, deselect the selection. Command D. So I've got some orange peppers. The next thing we're going to move on to is blurring and sharpening areas in image. So, you know, some of the pepper edges weren't perfect. There was some yellow that I missed. You can see right here in the top part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just kind of blur and mush the yellow and orange pixels that are left behind together. So I'm going to do that by using the blur tool, which is this great little teardrop tool right here. I'm going to grab my blur tool. I'm going to change the brush size of my blur tool. I can't talk, you guys, to 40. Just going to type it in. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure the hardness of my brush is 0, so a nice soft brush. I'm going to make sure my mode is normal. And the strength is about 50. And I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. Blur tool. Strength 50, normal. And I actually do not want my brush to be that big. Sorry, I was looking at something different. I'm going to go ahead and change my brush to maybe 10 pixels. It's good to know everyone messes up and makes errors. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and I'm just going to kind of lightly go over. Maybe I'll make my brush a little smaller with the bracket tools, maybe down to like a 5. And I'm going to blur those edges of the pepper where the yellow might have popped through a little bit. So it's kind of just merging and smoothing out and making the orange and the yellow kind of blend together a little bit with the blur. Zoom out, you can see that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to take you over how to lighten and darken areas of an image more precisely. So I want to burn some shadows in the chef's smock, make them a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab the burn tool, which is right here, looks like a little hand. Now we're going to go ahead and make our burn brush tool about 40 pixels. Make sure the hardness is 0, and you want to have mid-tones selected as your range. And what we're going to do is we're going to also make sure our exposure is light. So go ahead and make your exposure about 15%. Really lightly darken the edges. And what you do is you paint using your brush and burn, so make it darker, the area under the brush's smock. So you can see I'm just making that shadow a little bit darker. You want to be careful because if you make it too dark or expose it too much, it can make it look, the shadow look unnatural. So I just burn that in just a little bit. And then of course the last thing we want to do when you precisely color correct an image is you want to sharpen the entire image at the end. And that's really easy. Let's go up to Filter, Sharpen, and we're going to choose the Unsharp Mask option under Sharpen. Again, you get that dialog box, you have a preview option, and the amounts that I want you to put in are amount, about 50%. We're going to choose a radius of 1 and a threshold of 0. And again, you can uncheck and check, and you'll see how that sharpens our picture just a little bit. And of course, you can choose how much you want to use, what you think is appropriate. That's kind of the last step that you want to make after you've made all the color corrections. The last thing you want to do is sharpen at the very, very end. So let's go ahead and compare our curves and color balance to our levels. So I'm going to hide that. You can see our levels layer is a little bit greener, a little more yellow. Our curves and color balance it's sharper, it's a little more cool and blue. And then of course, compared to the background image, it's really completely different. So I want to make sure you have a curves and color balance layer, a levels layer that you worked on, and your original background layer. Go ahead and do a file save, just to make sure you save this last step in this last part of your file. And I want you to go ahead and upload this final file to Canvas. One last step that you can do if you want to really go back and refine a bit more is you can open up the file that I gave you called Corrected Chef. You can zoom in a little bit, and we can go Window, Arrange, 2 up, Vertical, and go ahead and compare the version that you did to the corrected version that I shared, the final corrected version I shared. Is there anything you want to adjust in your version to make it a little bit warmer or darker like the original? Go ahead and make any of those final refinements and upload your final exercise in Canvas.